Welcome to Loot Locales, the series that highlights the most significant resource areas in Fallout. Today, we're covering one of the highest level zones in the game, Bog Town and beyond. The farming route begins at Pylon V-13 and the area known as Bog Town, both of which are among the best loot locations in the game. I'll show all the standout places for junk, as well as the many types of challenges that can be completed here. It's my belief that the most popular loot opportunities at Bog Town overshadow a few just as significant. After clearing the area, we'll travel north on Route 65 to Max Farm and Creekside Sundew Grove, where I give an overhead view to show the fastest way to get the most amount of cranberries. We'll briefly review the garden behind the General Steakhouse before crossing over to the Robco Research Center, where I discovered a new and surprising loot opportunity. It all ends with a unique yet overlooked farming source that might save some players a bit of camp budget. So let's head back to our starting point, where the once abandoned will soon be claimed. Bog Town, a place with a foggy history that's slowly becoming more unclear as its structures sink into the unstable terrain. Despite this, the loot here is very impressive, and it's perhaps the best exterior location for XP there is. To claim the workshop, you'll have to take out a Super Mutant Behemoth and the Super Mutant minions. This Behemoth is just one of 3 guaranteed spawns on the map. These massive monsters have 2 methods of attack and are equipped with a unique makeshift fire hydrant club, perfect for their insatiable need to smash. With a connected water pipe serving as the weapon's handle, Behemoths certainly know how to improvise in a fight. Luckily, the shacks in this area provide some cover and, at least, a little height. Get too high, however, and you'll witness the Behemoth sniping you down with a ranged boulder attack. I recommend crippling the Behemoth's legs to ensure a more controlled fight. Behemoths have a pretty extensive loot pool and much to offer, but the standout items are the various types of standard armor pieces that can drop, great for players trying to unlock armor mods through scrapping. When the area is cleared, it's time to claim the workshop. Whether you plan to set up extractors or not, certain enemy waves, like 4 waves of acid-dropping cave crickets, or even just 1 wave of 3 scorch beasts, can be a game changer for certain players. Additionally, if you're lucky enough to see it, the event variant for the Enclave event, A Real Blast, at this location spawns level 100 super mutants. This event combined with the right workshop defense event creates one of the most rewarding and organic XP farming opportunities in the game. Although the hat-trick Super Mutant Onslaught is rare, it's just another reason to frequent the area. During the time between claiming the workshop and the first attack wave, I recommend climbing up the Pylon V-13 access point and boarding the monorail train up top. Inside, you'll find the remains of a wacky time travel experiment, complete with a portal chamber that, perhaps, was once powered by the densest cluster of makeshift batteries in the game. Given the smaller scale of this location, the entire train is worth clearing, especially for its sources of oil. Though the identities of the skeletons remain unclear, one scientist seems to have died by falling from a great height, suggesting a bit of irony, given the dialogue on this holotape regarding gravity. There are 6 beds, but only 5 skeletons found. Still, I like to believe in the 1% chance that Vault Boy was the 6th scientist when he was feeling his most experimental. With the train now completely looted and the first wave of enemies about to arrive, the scientists here would have been impressed with your resourceful use of time. Once back on the ground, the first of 19 bags of cement can be found at the pylon's base, and 2 pylons down, the mound for the 4th Cranberry Bog treasure map can be dug up. If you find yourself already over-encumbered when it's time to fight, there's a weapons workbench nearby for scrapping, though the second bag of cement and a tinker's bench is located inside the workshop zone as well. After the workshop is secured, and ideally, the entire Bog Town is clear of enemies, the real looting can begin. Though you may want to consider how Bog Town is abundant with bear traps. Forget this while on top of the Red Rocket gas station, and you'll be laughed at by the densest cluster of clowns in the game. These figurines, set up like bowling pins, contribute to the large amount of leather scrap found on the roof. Nearby, inside the semi-truck, is even more leather, oil, and another makeshift battery. The neighboring destroyed houses contain a reliable spawn of Radroaches, which makes it one of my go-to spots for completing insect challenges. Inside the building back within the workshop zone, you'll find the first of 2 significant loot rooms. Up the ladders and through the blown-out hole in the wall, 6 more bags of cement will be at your feet. Further inside, 7 additional bags can be found, making this room a place worth remembering, especially if you're an avid camp builder. 2 more often overlooked bags of cement are found on the neighboring building. Both bags can be seen here, but you may have to enter a secret area to reach one of them. The loot inside the mycology lab is noteworthy, with 8 bags of fertilizer in the grow area. The other bag of cement is hidden so well, it's an item that loot hunters like me have come to appreciate. And for any thorough farmers out there, the final 2 bags of cement are on the other side of Bog Town. While one is out in the open, the other is trapped underneath the floor of a destroyed house and cannot be reached. However, with a little bit of trial and error using an explosive weapon or gamma gun, the bag can be brought out. Overall, depending on the cluster settings, Bog Town ranks first or second for the place with the most concrete. The next area is on the floor directly above the unfinished room with the 13 cement bags. It can be accessed through the elevator shaft on the roof or the hole in the ceiling on the second floor. While this room could hardly be called a secret nowadays, it's still a spot that every player should know about, and it's just one of the many opportunities worth checking if you're in the Bog Town area. Among the globes, telephones, clipboards, and desk fans is the densest cluster of typewriter in the game, all of which is an excellent source for screws, gears, and springs. On the ground floor, in an overlooked corner of the room, a stash of pre-war food might be found tucked between the wall and the couch. There's much to be said about the spawn rules of this type of pre-war food spawn, but unfortunately too much for just this video. So, without going too deep, here are the most useful fun facts to remember. 99% of the time, when you're looking at a clean box of sugar bombs, you're also looking at a spawn point for where an irradiated box of sugar bombs can be. How about that? A win for clean sugar bombs. The actual odds of seeing irradiated sugar bombs is very low. You'll most often see canned dog food at these spawn points, if anything at all. But because there are 45 of these spawns in Bog Town, the chance that one of those ended up as irradiated sugar bombs is that much more likely. So, if you've ever wondered why you'll sometimes see irradiated sugar bombs in places that don't seem mapped or documented in any guide, you'll now understand why. Like the pre-war food spawns, Bog Town is also the winner for having the most generic boiled water spawns. These cartons have a 50% chance to spawn, much higher than the pre-war food, and might be of interest to niche players who prefer to avoid radiation entirely. On the other side of the highway is a police station where it seems justice was handled in unconventional ways. Here you'll find the most incarcerated super mutant in Appalachia, next to the densest cluster of handcuffs in the game. If you'd like to keep things this way, don't worry, this super mutant is far from being the mad dog Melon est, as there are also 2 teddy bears and a skeleton buddy locked up to keep him company. On the far west side of Bog Town, the random spawns continue for pre-war food, drinks, and especially chems. It's here that I happen to notice some super mutant activity that fits into Bog Town's history, a history that's already repeating itself, as the super mutants here are using the chem labs to craft chems in secret. With the surrounding super mutants on watch and the bear traps in place, I suspect few players have ever approached the area quietly enough to notice this subtle bit of lore. Though there have been many reports of super mutants wandering into player camps to use a chemistry bench, I'm unaware of any other super mutants in Appalachia that use a world chemistry bench like this one at Bog Town. Since making this discovery, I can't help but wonder what other unique or secret NPC animations have gone unnoticed in the game. That said, it's finally time to abandon the Bog Town for what lies beyond. North on Route 65 is a crash scene often patrolled by a random enemy spawn. Among the skeletal remains inside the bus is a possible box of irradiated sugar bombs. A note on one of the seats reveals that this bus once made frequent stops at Allegheny Asylum. And as it turns out of all the interior spaces in the game, Fort Defiance is the location with the most amount of irradiated sugar bomb spawn points. I find this to be a very interesting loot detail, as it gives a lot more meaning to the placement of this particular box of sugar bombs. A bit further up on the east side of the road, a secret cave invites a mix of the most curious and inebriated players. This unmarked location is called Mac's Hidden Stash, and it became much less hidden after it became one of the 36 Nuka Shine wake-up spawn points, which were added alongside the very first major update of the game. Despite there being no trace of this Mac person, I am a fan of their style and the things they left behind, with a few crystal junk items being the highlight. While we can't say for sure, the doghouse at Mac's home suggests Mac may have been one of the lucky ones. That is, Mac was allowed to have both a cat and a dog simultaneously. We arrive at the next major waypoint of the locale, Mac's farm. Here you'll find the densest cluster of cranberry in the game. Considering the location of the Mac's farm spawn point, I believe this is the best orientation for an overhead view. The route starts with 5 cranberry spawns that arc around this fallen structure. Up to 5 additional loose cranberries can be found among the loot inside, though their spawn is not guaranteed. The next spawn can be found easily by hugging the far wall of the bog. From there, move inward for a single spawn that's a bit tougher to see. Then, narrow in on the canoe area. 4 regular spawns are here, and up to 13 loose cranberries are in and around the canoe. You'll definitely want to pick these up if you plan to be the fastest cranberry farmer there ever was. Next, go to the far end of the bog for another regular spawn. Turn right, and another spawn will be in a gap. Narrow in on the bog's corner, where the final cranberry is found. Though the cranberries at Mac's farm should be more than enough, the most serious chefs may want to continue into Creekside Sundew Grove. Like areas of the ash heap region, the air here is toxic, and appropriate headwear is recommended. This route is much more of a maze than Mac's farm. Still, the area can be mastered with some practice. Here's the path I use, which starts with 2 spawns here. A single spawn is found close by around this exotic-looking bush. A cluster of 3 is located further down, followed by a slight decline into a bog channel leading to another lone spawn. To the right, there's another cluster of 3. Typically, a bit of action occurs in the creek area with the canoe. Look for the incline out of the creek at this point here. 2 regular spawns are ahead, with another single spawn below in this narrow channel. Mind the gap as you cross over, and for 2 more spawns here. Another spawn is down below behind the petrified Scorched. From here, turn and follow this path towards the other end of the grove. Once you reach this cranberry spawn, turn left for 2 more. Ascend the bog channel once more over the roots of these trees for another spawn. Down underneath is 1 more. The final and 22nd cranberry spawn at Creekside Sundew Grove is just over here. If you aren't using stealth to farm these plants, you might be greeted by a Scorch Beast at the grove's exit. Regardless, our next area of focus is the General Steakhouse, and naturally, we'll be taking the scenic route to get there. For those wondering, brain fungus, mutated fernflower, gourd blossom, and tarberry can also be found in this area of the cranberry bog. The garden outside the General Steakhouse is one of 2 exterior places where herbivore players can find more than just a few melon blossoms. Additionally, the 8 garden gnomes at this location make it a popular spot to complete gnome challenges. Inside the establishment, you'll find a lot of what you'd expect: cooking flavors, recipes, and a stocked kitchen in the basement. The static super mutant spawns make this another area for excellent XP. Don't forget to check the roof, where you might see a static raider NPC on the island beside the restaurant. Despite repeated efforts to illuminate the space, they won't notice if you take anything from this unmarked location, including the 3 loose cranberries that have a chance to spawn by this skeleton. After a cozy night under a collapsing bridge, a new day brings a fresh loot discovery at the Robco Research Center. Beyond the graveyard of automation protesters is a line of trucks and trailers alongside various types of destroyed robots. The key thing here is that the loot from these robots is freely available to everyone. Most notably, it can all be area looted from this centralized sentry bot. While the loot is slightly randomized, it's usually a mix of ammo, circuitry, aluminum, antiseptic, and other useful junk. While this might not appear to be all that significant of a loot discovery, consider that the payout here is greater than that of a regular container, chest, or steamer trunk. When considered in that context, the loot here is exceptional. To the left of the road leading into the research center is an unmarked location called Marsh Cottage. Here lies a small but significant patch of 3 gourds, the same gourds many players have planted at their camps, taking up camp budget. This cluster comprises 3 of the 11 gourd plants that can be harvested in the game, all of which can be found in this area. I wanted to stress the option of these gourds here because, for many years, I was under the impression that there weren't any pickable gourds in the game, and I figured other players might not be aware either. Considering that gourds cost 2 points of camp budget each, you might regain a few percentage points of your camp budget by regularly farming gourds from here instead of your own camp. For players uninterested in living near these gourds, it takes a little over 1 minute to farm them from the closest primary location, K-Max Transmission. From the spawn point, walk to the destroyed edge of the road. From here, turn around and head up the hill to find the first cluster of gourds. Continue directly ahead to a tree with 3 strangler pods. Then cross the open area to the tree line. Follow it to a large stump where the second cluster of gourds is located. The third patch is up ahead. Use the Mothman Cultist Shrine as a reference point. The landmark to look out for is a skewed tree that hangs differently than the others. Once located, follow the 2 rocks downward at the tree's base for a patch of 2. From here, face the skewed tree and climb the hill behind it. Look out for the marsh cottage at its peak, where the 4th and final cluster of gourds can be picked. This completes the 3rd episode of Loot Locales. Be sure to check the comment section below, where you can leave additional support for the channel. I hope you enjoyed this installment and that it helps you get the most out of Bog Town and beyond. Happy looting, and thank you so much for watching.